everybody, Dirkie here with another Pixel Perfect video. So we're gonna basically take off where we left off last time, and we're gonna pimp this cube to make it fit the Project Zomboid aesthetic. This is still gonna apply to other pixel art stuff, but of course we are aiming for Project Zomboid, so that's the aesthetic that I am going for. So let's get started. Now, we can all agree that Project Zomboid is a pretty grimy, nasty looking game, so we're gonna fit that in here. But first we're gonna have to tweak the shading a little bit on this cube. And what I mean with that is we're gonna have to get this corner to be not as sharp, because it's very sharp at this point. We can all agree that this is like a 90-degree corner, even though the edges say, oh, this could be pretty soft. So we're gonna get like the middle ground for these colors and put that in between, and that already makes it look a lot nicer. I'm going to do the same thing for this highlight, which is probably that color. No, it's actually better like that. No, it should be a little bit lighter. There we go. That already looks so much better. Now what you could do, and I don't think we are going to do it, but you could add in another line of blends to make it particularly English, whatever. Make the edges look really rounded, because this reads round. While this is still pretty sharp, it has a nice little bevel. Let's draw it up here. So this edge, round. The other edge is basically going up, then you get a nice bevel and it goes like that, and the edge we had previously is this. So but these are the three things you can do very easy with just a handful of pixels, and I think the best choice for Project Zomboid most of the time is this middle one. Does that mean you can't use the other ones? No, of course not. You can use them when you feel the need, but in most scenarios this one will get you where you want to go. So let's get rid of these lines for a second, because we're not going to do that, and let's get rid of that because we don't want the cube to be round. And we have our basically drawn cube, so let's get some shading in there to make it look nice. Now there is a little magic trick that I will show you near the end to make it pop and make it so much better. But of course I'm not going to reveal that right now. You have to stay and watch. We'll first do some other steps. Now to add some grime, I'm going to create a new folder inside Photoshop, and I'm assuming you're using up-to-date, drawing tools, so you should be able to draw folders and layers and stuff. If your tool doesn't support folders and layers, you should probably get a better tool, because that's like it's 2022. And maybe a later year if you're watching this. If you're watching this in an earlier year, I'm gonna be impressed. But if you're watching this like 2050, still thank you for watching my videos, because then they're old as hell. But then you definitely have better tools. But yeah, if your tool doesn't support folders and layers, get something new. So we have a new folder here. I'm just gonna let cube, and I wholeheartedly support renaming folders and layers so you can actually figure out what they are, but I'm also, I think, the front runner of always forgetting to do it. Point is, what we're gonna do is a little advanced trick, and when I say advanced, it's not that advanced, but compared to the other stuff it's a little bit harder. So we are gonna use the magic wand tool. Now this sounds very impressive because it has magic in the word, but it is not. It basically selects all the colors on screen of the color that you press or click on. Depending on the tolerance, it can select more colors than just the one that you select. But if you set it to 1, it's always just gonna 100% select only the colors that are exactly the color that you click on. Now why does that matter? Now we're gonna use it a little bit differently. We're gonna click outside of our object, so it selects everything that's not been drawn. And you probably have a select tool like this in GIMP. I just don't know what it's called. But I select on the outside, And I'm gonna go to select and then inverse. So this also has a shortcut, Shift Control I, but to show you where it is, there's an inverse button. So now I have everything selected that is drawn, which is very important. Now we're gonna go to our cube. I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna create a mask. Now if you have stuff selected, it's going to create that mask based on your selection. And it creates this little black box with this white cube in there, which kind of resembles the cube down there. And that is the entire point. So if I create a new layer now, go into brush mode and let's pick a red color. I can draw wherever I want, but it's only going to show up on this little cube. And that is the thing that that we want, because we're going to create some grime and some dirt. And I only want it to show up on top of this cube and not anywhere else in my little drawing space. Now to draw some grime, I pick a random dotted brush like this. And I'm gonna create or get like a brownish, that seems like a nice brown color. And I'm gonna turn the opacity down to like 10% maybe. So if I click, it does that. I think that's still pretty harsh, like 6%. I think that's good. So now how I do it is I click and I drag straight down, just a couple times. So you get some nice streaks going, and make sure to do a couple more on the bottom so it looks like the bottom is a little bit more dirty compared to the top, which is a nice way of doing this. Now I'm gonna hit E for my eraser. And my eraser is already set to pencil, so it draws sharp pixels. And if I erase right now, it's gonna 100% delete this stuff. And that's not exactly what I want. So I'm gonna hit the right mouse button and select another, I don't know, pixely brush. Doesn't really matter. And if I do it like that, it's of course gonna get rid of it completely. But I'm also gonna set this to a low number. So let's go with 10 for this one. Scale this down a little bit. And then go over I don't like this brush, let's get a different one. Go over the stuff that you've just drawn to blend it in a little bit more so it looks like it is not as crisp, but still a little bit dirty. I'm gonna call this Dirk, and we're gonna create a new layer and basically do the same thing, but then with a more blobby pixel brush and maybe a bit of a greenish color. Just click away a little bit, and this is going to be like, I'm not sure if it's moss or just general funky green stuff growing all over the place. I'm going to also get rid of that a little bit. This brush is kind of nice because it rotates as I click, so it gives a nice organic shape. I mean, if we hide and show a little bit, you can see that it's adding a little bit of dirtiness to the top and side of the cube. Now let's add some, what would be next? Maybe some bird shit. Maybe this box is outside, so let's add some bird shit. So I'm gonna go back to my drawing tool, and this time I'm gonna create or select a sharp brush and make it perfectly white. Oh, don't forget to turn on the opacity again. So maybe a bird as shit here, and it's actually dripping down the side. And then we're gonna, instead of having my brush be at a lower opacity, I want this all to be the same color, and then I can decrease the opacity of the layer itself to better match the vibe of what we're going for. Is this the most beautiful bird shit ever? Not really, but I think it's alright. Let's go for something like that. I think that reads well. Now you can work up close, but always keep in mind the distance that you're gonna see it from, in this case in game, or if you're just doing general art. Always try to zoom out and see it at the distance that it's gonna be when you actually look at it. So in game it's probably gonna look either like this, or at most like that, roughly. So if it reads well from this distance, you don't have to worry about a little pixel in the corner that's a little bit off. So always keep like the overhead, the big picture. Let's call it big picture. Let's keep the big picture in mind. So we have a little shit on shit on cube. And the magic trick that I was going to show you guys, let's do it now instead of later. So I create a new layer, and I'm going to go to filter, noise, and add noise. Oh, there's only empty pixels. Just fill it with a random color, filter, noise, add noise. And it's going to create a nice pixel perfect noise, pixel art, whatever thing. If your tool doesn't allow you to do this, just go on Google, search for pixel or noise, and just throw that in. It doesn't need to be as colored as this. We're gonna decrease the color intensity actually, and I'm gonna do that by hitting Control with U, which opens the hue and saturation button, and I'm gonna decrease saturation to about this, where you can still see a little bit of colors, but it's not as present. And I'm gonna put this layer on 2%. As you can see, it adds a little bit of variation to the surface, and that's what makes it a lot more realistic. 2% is not a rule. 1% often works, 2% works, 3% can also work, but as you can see, it makes the surface a lot rougher. And in this case, that's not really what I want to go for. I want for a semi-rough surface. I'm not saying you can't go bigger than 1, 2, or 3%, but I think 1, 2, and 3% are very nice standards that you can work from. And if you find an occasion where you need to go higher than that, of course, you know, do that. But this is a very nice trick to make the object feel a lot more well, present in the world. And then the last thing we need to do is create a little bit of a drop shadow, because of course we have the sun coming in from the top left or left, so we need a shadow on the right side. So I'm gonna go outside of our group, because if I draw inside of our group and I start drawing here, nothing's gonna show because of the mask. So I'm gonna go outside of that, create a new layer, and call it shadow. And I'm gonna use pitch black for this. Now, I'm not a big fan of pitch black shadows. Let's also get the eraser back to 100%, because in real life, unless there's like no light in a basement, shadows are not pitch black. They're usually a bit bluish, or you know, a slightly different color. But in this case, for the project Zomboid aesthetic, we are going with pitch black. So I'm gonna follow this line real quick like that, and I'm gonna move that out a little bit, and actually let's just curve it back in, and then actually attach it like that. Now this side looks horrible, but you're not gonna see it because I'm gonna move it behind the entire cube object, so we get a nice little shadow like that. And I'm gonna put that layer at 20%. 20% is the key here for Project Zomboid, because that really mimics the vanilla intensity of the shadows. 20% is not a general pixel art rule. If you're not doing it for Zomboid, you can do whatever you want, but 20% really works for Project Zomboid. Maybe we should make this a little bit crisper here. Make it look a little bit nicer. And we should actually move it out a little bit further. But this is something that's not a golden rule. You can basically play with it and just see what feels good for your object. I think actually what we had first was actually better. I'm gonna keep this. And that's how you basically quickly detail a Project Zomboid cube. Now, of course, a cube's not what you want to make, but if you can get a cube to look nice, I guess you can get basically anything to look nice. So yeah, that's how I draw a cube. And in the next videos, we will actually get it, you know, in the game or in the editor, and actually start working on some more interesting stuff. As always, thank you guys for watching. If you want to support me on Patreon, I appreciate it. If you already support me on Patreon, I appreciate it even more. And well, wait, first, if you like these videos, like and subscribe. I always forget to do this spiel. But I hope you guys have a very, very nice day. Thank you for watching.